Welcome to the impact of AI on the design industry. We're going to be exploring the effects of AI technology on the world of design. As Diego mentioned, I'm your host, Adam Perlis. I'm the CEO and founder of Academy, a UX-focused staffing and recruiting agency. And today I'm joined by amazing, distinguished guests, literally distinguished. Thank you, Nando. Nando Costa, who's a distinguished designer at Microsoft. He previously worked at companies such as Google and Instrument. He's widely known for his experiments in AI, particularly using MidJourney and Dall-e to artfully manipulate images utilizing text prompts. And Ashley Park, who is the former head of design, customization, and personalization of UX at Google, and previously has worked at Samsung Innovation Lab, and she's worked to develop mission-critical projects to bring AI to the creative fields and foster the future of imagery. Welcome to both of you guys. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, as you guys know, just a little primer, as AI technology really continues to advance, right? It's got the potential to revolutionize the design industry. I mean, tools such as Dalle and MidJourney and ChatGPT, the process of creating designs may become more efficient over time. And, however, this efficiency also may lead to concerns about job security for designers, as well as potential for lower wages. In this panel discussion, we're going to explore the potential impact of AI on the design industry, including the benefits, the drawbacks of using AI for design tasks, and the potential implications for designers in terms of employment and compensation. And we've brought together this amazing panel of experts in the design and AI fields to provide their insights and perspectives on this important topic. Now, guys, before I begin, I wanted to pull something up just for you all to be aware of and also see as a primer really for our discussion, because many of you may not even be aware of the capabilities of AI. And Nando's been generous to share some of his work that I'm going to actually share with you guys in just a moment. Let me share my screen and hopefully you guys can all see this. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we'll just take a look at this for just a moment. This is some of the really impressive work that Nando's been able to put together, utilizing the help of AI. And very briefly, Nando, can you tell us what it takes to generate something like this? This seems very impressive.
Honestly, it's a lot of trial and error. Pretty much, I think everything starts with an idea, right? Something I'm just excited about to explore, and sometimes it doesn't really have an immediate purpose. Like it may not be for a project. Sometimes it is, and I'm starting with this as the first step. But really, what it takes is writing prompts or just essentially words, these keystrokes that guide a particular system, in this case, MidJourney or Dalle, to start giving an image as a feedback, as an output. And I really enjoy, I have, usually a key set of about 20 words that I start with, more or less. And then I expand from there. So sometimes it can get up to, 50 or 60 or 70 words before you get to a final result. I continuously add and fine tune not only the order, but the weight and taking words in and out, right, to eventually get to a result that you see. It's not, that difficult, but it just takes time and it takes sort of some practice. But yeah, I love the process. And with MidJourney in particular, you end up using Discord quite a lot. So you essentially interact with the bot inside of Discord, and there's a lot of fine tuning, a lot of sort of tweaks that you can add. If some of you have heard of Stable Diffusion, that can get a little bit more complex, and you can sort of create your own models. But anyway, I'll stop there. But
yeah, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you kind of sharing a little bit about your process. We'll certainly talk a little bit more about how you integrate that, into the creative workflow. But, I think for those who maybe haven't seen images as striking as this, and I think you might all be also looking at this amazing portrait of Nando in the middle with like what looks like gooey clouds or cotton candy or something. He's really kind of pushing the boundaries of what this technology is capable of. And I'm excited personally to see how these things integrate with our workflows, and we're certainly going to talk more about it. But thank you, Nando, for sharing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and move into our discussion together. So, now that you guys have had a chance to kind of react to, seeing this this type of work, I want to turn this question to the group, both Ashley and Nando. How has AI impacted the design industry so far? What are you hearing out there? And what are some examples of maybe it being used in AI? Maybe there's some things that people haven't seen yet that you guys happen to be aware of because you're so deep in the industry.
Yeah, I can follow after Nando if you want to kind of start.
Sure. I'll give it a go. Well, I think there's it's hard to see an industry that hasn't been either directly affected or heavily inspired by, right, AI at this point, especially around design. But if I had to put it in a spectrum, I would say I would put concept design, essentially the images that we just looked at, right? Put concept design at one end of that spectrum where it's been heavily affected. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have something like 3D and 3D production, which hasn't really been affected. And it's because the tools haven't really caught up in their ability to represent 3D and create 3D models in a way that is actually useful in production yet. There's a lot of research, but not a lot of direct impact in the industry. Now, in between, starting from concept design, you have then visual design, you have things like photography even, right? Just yesterday, MidJourney released their V5 version. And if you go and try to create something that is photographic, you basically it's almost indistinguishable. If you take a photograph, of course, you can't direct in a such a way that you get the exact subject matter, right? I want this car and this angle and all these things. You can get close, but you won't get exactly the same situation. But distinguishing between a photograph and a render from MidJourney, it's getting to a point where it's nearly photographic. And then you have UX and you have motion and you have sound, right? And you're starting to see a lot more research, a lot more investment in these areas. But it's pretty much, there's a ton of disruption. I feel like when it comes to art and design visualization around especially concept art, character design, environment design, architectural concepts, there's a lot that's been done there. And I think that's those are the creators that are feeling probably the most challenged in their professions. Because if you're in, let's say, a game design studio and you need multiple concept artists, you might, consider, hey, can I use this tool more often, right? And at the beginning of my process when it's blue sky. But then when I need to pare down and I have my decision, I know I want this character in this angle with that background, then you sort of go to your professional that can really put that together. So it's becoming more of an embedded part of the process. What I'll just add is that I think what I'm seeing that is super exciting is around UX, where you can create, the old approach of, I'm going to spend all this time creating a presentation. Maybe not so much anymore. These things can stand up very quickly, a presentation for you. If you've seen, not to promote Microsoft necessarily, but yesterday we announced Copilot for PowerPoint, and you can essentially in a couple of seconds make a multi-slide, really beautiful presentation. And then building websites and building apps with things like Galileo, for instance. It's incredible how you can do that just with a couple of keystrokes. You send up a new app, then you can judge and debate and then fine tune from there, including lots of plugins for Figma. So it's really powerful stuff. And maybe Ashley wants to complement that.
Yeah, thank you, Nando. Completely, exactly as Nando mentioned, like from my own experience, AI was being mentioned in the industry for a while, but interestingly, we're seeing the peak and rise in recent years about AI, particularly in the creative field, both negative at the same time positive way. In the community, it was initially perceived as a fun tool so that even regular people were like, oh, what is that? Like now I can become an artist, like, cool. And now I'm seeing like both in professional and academic words that, oh, that's the thing. Will that, like make kind of our life miserable or will actually cherish it? So positive side, I'm seeing a lot of students and designers getting inspired, like Nando artists become like extremely creative more with the technology. At the same time, more for the UX field, it actually helps students build a wireframe faster and make storyboarding faster. So there's a lot of efficiency that students can take, especially for the community and people who cannot really afford fancy design and fancy tools. So that's what I'm seeing in the industry that will change the future.
That's amazing, and both incredible answers. I know from personal experience, even just like yesterday, I was able to stand up a brand new page on our website within an hour, and ChatGPT helped write a portion of the copy. I edited it, and then was able to kind of copy and paste certain portions just into the site. And something what might have taken days of writing and editing took just 1 hour. So. I've firsthand also seen the improvements in my efficiency and workflow. I think it's certainly been a really positive change in my opinion. So I'm going to jump to Nando and go a little bit more deep in the specifics. Do you think that AI can help designers work more efficiently and create new opportunities for creativity? I mean, how is it impacting your workflow? And like what are the things from both efficiency, but also maybe even like tooling that you're starting to maybe even see opportunities to combine things together and make them even better? You had mentioned like how 3D isn't quite there yet, but there could be. And yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I just shared this article here in chat, which it's been top of mind for me because I think I just mentioned just a bunch of different areas here, from concept design, visual design, photography, UX, motion, et cetera, 3D, pretty much every area that it touches a workflow that I've been focused on throughout my career. And what's interesting is that at least from what I'm witnessing in my own process, is that where AI tends to be most helpful right now is in that early ideation phase, right? Where you have a lot of ambiguity, you have a blank canvas, you have blue sky direction, and then after a lot of iteration, ideation up front, you kind of tailor back into a direction, and then you go forward and keep refining. And to me, that first mile of that process is like my favorite. It's where I spent the majority of my career. It's where it's the part that I love the most, as well as the very end, right? When you go to market and you sort of celebrate a product, you tell a story about it. But that upfront like poses the question, like, is AI stepping in too much in place of human creativity? So I think it's really in our own collective interest to make sure that we preserve plenty of space for human creativity. And as somebody put in chat here, I also really love the positioning that we've had at Microsoft to really position AI as a co-pilot. So essentially, you're still in charge. You're the one sort of like taking the direction. AI is there to amplify you, to sort of, give you essentially superpowers. In my own process, I use a lot for that initial phase, right? I don't know where I could go, but I have keywords, I have feelings,
Sorry, I'm going to interject. It looks like Nando got muted accidentally.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Nando. And if everyone else wouldn't mind, please muting. I would really appreciate it. I'm just gonna message some folks in the chat. There we go. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so essentially, there isn't a tool to rule them all right now, I guess, in AI. There's a bunch of little solutions that are really helpful in a bunch of places. The way I like to think of it is as an ingredient, right? It's an ingredient that you can kind of sprinkle where it makes sense in your own design process. I love it as a thinking tool and a discovery tool, right? It just helps me sort of bounce ideas back and forth and have that sort of designer, co-designer next to me to sort of amplify my ideas and take them into potentially wild places that I can rein back in and sort of make sense of them. I would just add one more thing. I think back to sort of like, how can it really benefit our design industry? I think one of the key parts that I've always loved about being in design is that there's this aspect of relentless learning and sort of curiosity that we all have to adopt, right? From early in our careers all the way to like forever until the end of it. And I, many years back, decided to go and learn Cinema 4D, for instance. And it took me everyday practice to get to a point 6-7 years later where it's like, oh, I can kind of do, get to a place of comfort. I can kind of put together the thing that I want. Nowadays, I'm trying to learn Houdini a bit, and it's very daunting. It's very sort of like, it's complex. It feels intimidating, but you can ask any question to, let's say, ChatGPT and say, how do I go about getting this end result? And within seconds, it tells you step by step everything you need to do. And so for me, to learn a new skill, to discover a new tool, to sort of stand up a new idea to present to people and sort of, hopefully convince them that's perhaps the right direction. This feels really, really, really powerful and exciting new time for anything that you want to do or learn. So.
Yeah, beautifully said. I think that early ideation phase that you talked about, where I think people can have a chance to really experiment and articulate an idea, I know for me has been very powerful, because sometimes I got really great ideas and I can kind of summarize them. And I do this a lot with ChatGPT. I also do it with MidJourney, but I can't express it in truly the way that I want. And so I'll usually plug it into there. It'll kind of reformat it and express my ideas. And then I can refine it and say, oh, I want to, can you change this part about it? That's not exactly what I meant, And I find that helps me get to the idea that I really wanted, I had in my head faster. And it really is about the human on the other side's brain and how it works versus allowing the machine to create the ideas for you. It's just kind of an aid, a tool that helps, I think, get you there, which I think is what you're getting at, Nando.
Yeah, very much so. I think it can, and I'll confess, I've become pretty, excited and probably kind of hypnotized by the capabilities of MidJourney and Dalle and all these tools. And I, at this point, I've made maybe 17,000 images with those tools. And it can feel a little paralyzing because, depending how you look at it, you may why should I even bother? Right? Can I really it'll take me maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days to sort of come to a place where I can sort of match that. Sometimes even longer, of course. And so why bother? And I of course, those moments are fleeting. They're brief, thankfully. I think we have much more to add because it's great realization to think that its ability today is based on all the human ingenuity and the talent over generations, right? It's all of us pulled together that really brought AI to the place where it's at. That's a really humbling realization. And so I think we need to continue to leverage that to amplify our own ideas and our own capabilities, as opposed to replacing it. And I think, that's not only on policy and on direction for companies creating products, but also on all of us to sort of decide how to use it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the quotes that I heard was that, that the difference, and it was a different industry, was talking about attorneys, because that's definitely an industry that's going to be affected in some ways by AI. It's not that people are going to replace attorneys, right? They're going to replace attorneys with attorneys who know how to use AI, right? And I think that's the thing. There's going to need to be a human at the end of this. And we'll talk a little bit about, the times where maybe it will replace certain jobs in just a moment. But before we get there, I actually want to turn to Ashley here and talk a little bit about what it's like, building tools for AIs. What are like some of the considerations people should have when building tools that integrate AI or are built solely on AI? And then what are some of the potential risks and drawbacks? Are there ethical considerations? I'm sure you have experience with all that. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like it's ultimately a tool or a technology that people will use at the end, right? So like for people who create them, so for example, like people who train AI or create tools using AI should approach it with great empathy, meaning knowing who will be using, but at the same time, knowing what sources that they're going to be pulling for the tools and all the aspects of communities. They need a great empathy, but at the same time, high morality. Like when new technology arrives, there are always fears just because it's unknown. And if you don't know what that is, your fear arises. So if the people who create that doesn't provide the trust, then, the relationship is really difficult because especially in the beginning space, there will be no law associated with it. So people cannot just hang on to new technology because that doesn't provide them the safeguard, right? So from a person who is engaged with AI to provide the tools, the empathy and morality is extremely important to create a tool that can earn trust. Trust is critical, especially when the tool reaches a massive public. That's the fundamental thing they should be aware of. So that's kind of my perspective.
That's fantastic. And just to dive a little bit deeper into that, just like talk a little bit about ethics. This is a topic that started to come up a lot. I think there was something I saw. There was some sort of ruling that actually the author of a prompt can't actually technically claim copyright over the image or thing that was generated as a result, which I thought was interesting. And then that also kind of brings up questions around, being able to pull, for example, like MidJourney and Dall-e, I'm sure I've utilized artwork that is owned by somebody else to learn from and then recreate other imagery. Do you have any, like, you may or may not be the right person to answer this question, but do you have any thoughts on this subject? Is it something you've had to deal with maybe in your line of work?
Sure, absolutely. I'll be careful about law related or, confidentiality related conversations, but I could share my perspective.
Sure.
Almost like when every new technology kind of comes, like when MP3, when we move from CD to this digital world of sound, there's nothing, like for a while it was chaotic and all the musicians panicked just because there was no protection around their work. And now everyone can say,
right.
"Hey, I have your sound here." And that's what's happening here with the world of generative AI.
Yeah.
Great part is, ultimately it's people, like people who use the tool. So for example, like Nando, Adam, like who are very creative and consider AI as a co-pilot to make the synergy. That's a great because then it's going to be the ultimate tool to guarantee the efficiency. But for people who believe the AI could be the end, the result, and just using it for the entire work, then surely there's a lot of concern about monetization, copyrights, image, because ultimately it's somebody's work at the foundation. AI is not something like God, or it's not something that just was born. AI, the foundation is people's work, and we just train initially. And then also, who trains the AI? It's people. That's why I meant by empathy. People who build AI and create tools know what type of conversations they may have at the end, what type of issues they may encounter. The different aspect is, do they have a low moral because they have a small business impact and they are more, kind of keen on just launching it fast versus This company wants to make an extremely helpful tool that will help everyone and ultimately build a great community. Then people build the tool should be aware of those copyright issues, and even the model that they train and images that they grab, it should not be just someone else, an artist's work, just as a solo.
Yeah. And I think to kind of speak to that a little bit, it's, look, artists for a long time, including probably many of the people in this room, have used other people's work as inspiration for their work, right? And I think that there is kind of a line that you have to walk finely of copying someone's work exactly and truly like representing its likeness, which I think where a lot of like intellectual property and copyright infringement suits come from. It's like figuring out that line. That I think as long as it is not being crossed, to me, feels like it is okay to use these work as a tool to help analyze and figure out new creations of work, essentially a remix, as you might call it, in like musical terms. And so that's very interesting. And then the other thing that I think is very interesting is how, attribution may be handled in the future. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is like, wow, blockchain technology is an interesting, application of attribution, right? Is there a way for AI and are we meeting like the perfect moment where AI and blockchain technology can come together to ensure that we're getting proper ownership and attribution for people's work? Nando, I'll let you jump in. I've done enough talking.
No, I wanted to build on that because there is someone's innovation called stable. It's around stable diffusion, and it's called attribution diffusion, if I'm not mistaken. And essentially, it allows an artist to opt out from their work being trained in the future. I don't think it applies to models like Dalle and MidJourney because those are essentially, other closed models. But for stable diffusion, which is actually taking off quite a lot for the artist community, where I know lots of people are taking their work into tools like Runway ML to then build their own models, and they're seeing fantastic results. And then other people that are more technical are actually, branching out of stable diffusion and running their models locally, and then fine tuning that way, and really kind of exponentially like multiplying their output in ways that they would not be able to before. So I find that super interesting. I thought I would just chime in on a question somebody put here in chat, because I know it's not part of the flow here, but I think it's super important. One part that I've been thinking about, and back to your point earlier, Adam, you talked about, let's say, an example of an attorney, a lawyer, right? Would a lawyer be replaced? Or for that matter, a designer? And I find AI super interesting. I'm very captivated. I'm very invested, obviously. But I think also there's a realization that we will, over time, see a difference on those that have adopted AI and those that haven't. And in some, some careers and some fields, you might see that those that have access to AI have way more advantage than those that do not. And so I think that we all have a responsibility collectively to just make sure that AI is accessible to everyone, that it doesn't become an exclusive kind of tool. So I think it's really, principally speaking, I think it's really critical that we at least treat AI that way. So I'll pause there. I don't know if others have if Ashley, if you'd like to build on that, or if Adam, you have any reactions.
Sure, I'm happy to, but Ashley, this is your show. I want to give you a moment to speak.
Yeah, no. I think like I kind of have the similar kind of mindset and empathy about like how we should utilize it. I like just honestly feel like this is something like ongoing conversation, and we're in the moment, like any kind of new technologies, the very initial phase that people like, it's not just by like people who create AI or use AI, like all community need to come and grow together to help build what way and which path that we should go for the positive aspect of it. So that's something I feel like we're continuously making together.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I want to turn to that, Nando, I think you just touched upon, which is like the idea of AI replacing us. And I'll use one example. And I think this is the truth, right? I don't want to shy away from the truth. For example, we've been producing a lot of content on our blog. And with that, we've been using MidJourney to help generate all the images for our blog, actually. And I'll use two examples. One is we've used MidJourney very successfully to produce an image, and it's taken very little time. And, we've been able to post it right up there, right? It works. Sometimes it takes a long time. Actually, MidJourney's not getting it. It's as Nando explained, it can take hundreds of prompts sometimes to get it right. And what I ended up doing, for example, yesterday was I got some results I liked, and I ended up using my creativity to build my own image with the MidJourney images that I created. But the truth is that I was able to replace a illustrator that I could have hired for probably $200 an image, or maybe slightly more, to make those images. And that illustrator no longer has the work that they were going to get from me before. So what I'd like to ask is, how is AI affecting people's job prospects, especially as it relates to the design field? Is it actually going to create more opportunities, or is it going to displace certain roles?
Ashley, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, positively, like from my own experience building and engaging AI, I saw a lot of new possibilities. Yeah, I was absolutely worried about, community and artists and illustrators and jobs, and realized this new technology can actually offer a lot of new opportunities. For example, as I mentioned early on, AI is not perfect. Like, it needs sources to provide the great quality outcome. And it also needs keen eyes. So throughout the process, AI just doesn't simply generate things. There are numerous efforts going into the process to make the tool, meaning technically during the process, whoever runs the tool will need designers with keen eyes to go through and train AI properly from any perspective. It could be imagery, it could be filter, it could be style, it could be like just the UX model, it could be the layout, it could be proportion. So essentially tweaking how designers work could be changed, but I'm very positive it can create more jobs because how AI is kind of driven. So that's kind of my very humble perspective.
Yeah, to kind of build on what you're saying, like, I think it's inevitable to have read an article, right, that we've all seen in the news that lots of tech companies have reduced their workforce, right? And one of the rationales, there are many rationales, but one of them is that, okay, we probably, these companies probably hired too many employees during this phase, predicting some growth, and then that growth didn't really maintain post-pandemic, and so we need to let those people go. So if that's the direction, then let's also lay over the fact that our design sprints are not getting any longer; they're all becoming faster, right? If I recall, you start any design sprint, it would be like, cool, let's spend the next month doing this. I think a lot of times we don't really have that luxury anymore. They've been reduced to like 3 weeks and 2 weeks. And even, the majority of design sprints I see these days are 1 week long. And so for that reason, you used to have more designers, more humans, take part in that process up front. While that's still super valuable, I also see a lot of scenarios where people are sort of complementing, people with AI. Of course, it depends on the project, depends on what we're talking about. But I see a situation where, hey, we have the pressure of continuing to move at a certain pace. Do we invest on people in that scenario? Or do we invest on AI? I am a believer we need to continue investing on people, but it's inevitable that AI will sort of replace all those tedious, repetitive tasks that keep us in the way of doing the most creative and where our own energy, human energy, is really valuable being in. And so we might not be hiring for a lot of the repetitive tasks. We might be hiring for some of the most, kind of where really thoughtfulness and human intervention and kind of ingenuity really comes into play. I'll just add one more part, which is as you can see on the screen, on the wall behind me, I'm a huge fan of like physical art. I don't own a single NFT, right? And my house has like, endless more things that I really, I cherish. A lot of these things behind me are from friends and coworkers and people that I've physically met, and so I think that will be two parallel things that will progress. On one end, AI will continue to get better. The tools will get more innovative. We'll be able to sort of create more quickly. And that's all great and valuable. On the other side, I think, and I'm already seeing that, there's a new resurgence and great, in some cases, overvaluation of sort of like physical things that people are making. Art is not getting cheaper. Physical art isn't getting cheaper. And so I see also a great market for artists, illustrators, and real photographers, and also digital artists to continue to craft really kind of specific things with their own hands, their own tools, etc. Sometimes AI will be a little part of that, including I see sculptors using AI to sort of generate models that then get sort of created by CNC or all kinds of other digital printing techniques, but it turns into a physical thing. So anyway.
Yeah, that's a fantastic perspective, Nando. And one of the things you and I actually spoke about, and we haven't talked about it exactly here, but we spoke about it on LinkedIn. That's how our conversation began, was that because I had asked that question to you in your thread, and I wanted to know if AI was going to replace designers. And what you shared with me was that, no, it's actually going to make them more efficient. It's going to free them up to do more work on other things. And I thought that was a very interesting answer. And, of course, there will be cascading effects of that. If that person is freed up to do more things, then they will be more efficient. Therefore, the company will be able to utilize them more. Therefore, there won't need to be as many designers doing other tasks. So as a result, the entire market will start to, consolidate a little bit. There will be less design jobs and opportunities than before. But I also do see that as an opportunity for designers to become experts in AI, to be able to learn how to utilize the tools, to become more valuable themselves, for the industry because it becomes a finite asset, become even better than it is today. And that's not to be exclusionary of those who may not be ready to advance their careers in design, right? But it is kind of like something to dangle the carrot to say, look, this is where you need to get to be at a competitive advantage with everyone else. This happens in every industry. It happened in the development field many years ago, as people started to progress rapidly in that with new tooling. And I think that the same thing's going to happen in AI. So I thought that was like a very interesting perspective. And I appreciate what you had shared there. I'm happy to have you jump in and share more thoughts on it.
Well, maybe I'm not a developer. I can't code, but maybe I will extend this kind of wave of transformation we're seeing over to code as well. I mean, I've talked to developers that they might be building an app, might be running an experiment, and they are surprised how much they rely on those tasks, back to what we were saying earlier, that really felt repetitive. And now they, I have somebody I met that said, I'm kind of reliant on that commit, and I'm only writing so much code. I'm getting used to writing only so much code that I'm waiting for it to sort of suggest the next line. And so I can autocomplete. So I'm kind of becoming a little lazy. But I think that's interesting is that you can stand up apps like this. And so if you have an idea that before, okay, I have to find funding, create a startup, find a developer, even if it's smaller scale, find someone that's ready to commit that I can afford. Now you don't have to. right? Now you can break that barrier, have an idea, you can go from idea to deployment much more quickly, spending almost $0. And so I think that's really transformative in terms of innovation and competition. So back to sort of like, you know, getting rid of jobs, I think, to Ashley's point too, I think that it can generate a lot of jobs and generate a lot more innovation and make this playing field more leveled and more competitive.
100%. Awesome. Amazing answers, amazing discussion. Also, I've been trying to follow along with all the chat as well. There's been incredible discussion there. One person asked Diego if we could have a transcript actually of the chat, I think, which would be cool if there's a way to export that too. A lot of interesting discussions happening. I know that we are coming up on time here. So I'm actually going to turn it back to the community to be able to ask some questions. I have a few here in my Q&A. I'm going to just take a quick look through them, and then I will ask away. Just a moment.
There's a one in bold, Adam, that you can ask. I think that's really important.
Great.
At the end.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Diego. I appreciate that. Okay. So question to the panel. In most businesses, engineers with no design expertise will bypass designers completely and output infinite design permutations. I think Galileo, you had mentioned a tool that might be interesting to do that. That is what the future looks like. The concern is that the design community is not really seeing the eventual outcome. Perhaps we're naively underestimating the threat posed by this to the profession of design. Lawyers are getting replaced. ChatGPT output, it's a great legal for documents for me. No need to hire anyone. I won't say the person's name at the moment unless they want to be identified, but reactions to the statement?
I can share my perspective too. I still believe in the positive aspect of it. So for example, if we apply the same logic, technically designers won't need engineers. The very interesting conversation that we had was now with ChatGPT, and then like there are a lot of tools that lower the barrier for designers to actually develop apps and develop websites so easily. That means engineers actually may have the same concerns. Oh, designers won't talk to us anymore. They're going to just build whatever in a clumsy way, but still will use it, and then we're going to lose a job. So like from every aspect, the way that I see it is a great collaboration, and I learn it from like by teaching students. So it's because of the structures, students are not trained to work collaboratively with different functions, with different people from different domains. I do believe this technology will help them to communicate. So for example, in the professional field, PM, engineers sometimes struggle to communicate with designers because they don't possess those visual language and visual eyes, but they also don't sketch. But imagine if they could use AI as co-pilot and use it as a communication tool to get closer to the designer. And conversation is much quicker, much easier, much effective. So if we tweak it a little bit from the angle of it's human relationship, but then now technology helps us get together closer because it fills the gap between the gap that designer doesn't possess from the engineering world, engineers gap that they don't possess design world, and PM world, and now they're able to work tightly together. That's how I view the technology. I mean, still very positive way, but that's how I believe in.
And one thing to add to that I think is kind of interesting is like, there may be companies out there that are going to try to replace their designers with a tool like this. And maybe it will be successful, maybe it will not. But to me, those companies probably didn't value design in the first place. And my guess is that all of those companies are going to always require that human touch, especially like from a UX perspective. It's just so hard for an AI to truly, truly understand the context of every situation and permutation. It can certainly help aid and figure those out, but I don't think it can always see the whole and see the picture that's being drawn literally in the application or experience or website that you've built. We're a long way away from like having that kind of ability, I think. And I just feel like we're not not quite there yet where it's truly replacing us.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Ashley said. So nothing to add there. I feel super optimistic. And back to the question at the core that you've laid out, I think this also has a lot to do with culture. So some companies might be further ahead in sort of the value of design. I've personally seen a huge evaluation of design inside of Microsoft. You know, it's one of the key aspects I love being a designer at Microsoft specifically for that reason. And so I think there's more for companies to grow into that direction. But I'm a believer in this being a plus for everybody.
Awesome. Amazing thoughts from both of you guys. Thank you. Diego, was there any other questions that you thought stood out here that I should pull up, or should I just give them a quick read?
Yes. Well, somebody asked, I think Shmuel, about AI technologies in architecture for disabled groups. I don't know if that's very related to what we are talking about, but maybe a question about this, inclusive design and all of these things that AI can help us to be more sensitive towards people that we don't understand the disabilities and their challenges on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and I can read the question. It said, I wanted to ask how AI technologies can support adaptation design of buildings and open public spaces to the needs of disabled groups and populations to the needs of people with different disabilities.
Maybe I can kick off because I don't have any experience in architecture, so I won't chime in there. But what I wanted to raise is that, and I think it's related to the previous question too, and it sort of touches upon a lot of what we talked today. I do believe that if you were to sort of like close your eyes and squint and kind of, you know, project into the future, there is a world in which, you know, potentially we don't have apps and we don't even have potentially the notion of an operating system the way that we think of an operating system today, right? You can imagine that what we're left with is a set of skills that are going to apply very differently to each of us. And different from, you know, age, you know, like we have, you know, 5 generations that might be using the same piece of software. They all might interact differently. Also, language. We're just all talking about at the beginning, like we all speak different languages, and even like locality. Like we might, you know, be culturally inserted in a place that thinks very differently. Like at a basic level, think of iconography, right? We all respond to iconography slightly differently in its meaning. And so imagine if we could interact with an experience that actually can take all those things into account, even expression, how you respond to the look and feel of a particular app, right? So all those things can be tailored just to you. So you just have the basic engine and it sort of renders the thing that is unique to Adam and unique to Ashley, unique to Nando. And we all can achieve the things that we want to achieve with that app much more quickly because it's kind of natively built for us. So I kind of think of that as being where we're headed. And yeah, so if we could apply that to architecture and to spaces, they'll be incredible, except that we can't change spaces. Once they're built, they're built. But I can see a lot of benefits for sure, at least in the planning of how a space may be inclusive to everybody.
That comment actually greatly inspired me. So we'll just share my quick kind of thought here. Not necessarily, I mean, like, I will rephrase it more from the angle of inclusive design, accessibility in the UX field. Oftentimes, designers kind of like get a lot of challenges because they don't possess a lot of knowledge about accessibility and inclusive design. They kind of have to manually go through and then change the level, still don't get it, like what that really means to people who need that functions. I think AI could like help advance. So like it's ultimately toward people for individual, not necessarily as a kind of role we need to target. And from that angle, I could kind of see that now like AI can help designers advance accessibility and achieve inclusive design ultimately, because it was very difficult to do in a manual way and like, humanly possible way if designers deal with the work at scale.
Awesome. Beautifully said, guys. I think there's so many incredible things that are happening. I can just see now like a Figma companion that's helping guide me as I design and making sure I'm doing a better way. I know there are even tools out there today that do a fantastic job, but even if it's just like constant analyzing, seeing what I'm doing and helping give me helpful tips along the way, silently, that's just, yeah, that would be a game changer. I love it. This is super cool. One thing that I wanted to ask is, people were asking a little bit about morally objectionable content, or we even think about fake news. Not all of our work touches on that, but maybe even some of it does to some degree. We talked also a little bit about blockchain technology and attribution. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is, well, how do we solve this problem of fake news, right? Like, how do we make sure that what's being created from us and our moral and ethical responsibility as designers to ensure that what we're creating is not something that's going to create problems in the world. And I thought, oh, well, blockchain technology could solve that. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are and what ideas you've thought of to help combat this, very important issue.
Yeah, I think we're making momentum. It's not just like one-way effort to like make things ethical. Like from the perspective of like, kind of building tools, building the technology, there's a lot of efforts going on to prevent the situation. So even from the prompt that the people put, it's not just simply free open prompt. Like there's a lot of ton of engineers and people's work to prevent certain words and certain prompts. So that's the fundamental part. But at the same time, I do anticipate once this becomes more like a regular tool, there will be also a new ecosystem and a developer platform to prevent further on any kind of misuse. And so for example, like fake news, it's very difficult to like prevent 100% just because from the people who build AI are humans, so they don't forecast every single thing and predict and prevent. So I think there should be multi-support along the way, and ultimately there could be a law to protect the situation. So it's a multi-angle support required.
Yeah, I'll add, if you're curious about that topic, there is this book that's quite interesting by Kai-Fu Lee. He's worked at lots of different prominent tech companies, including Microsoft and Amazon and many more. And it's called AI 2041, I believe. And that is one of the subject matters that he goes through. And the book takes you through many sort of like what if scenarios 20 years from now, right? And one of them being sort of fake news, where it's no longer using these tools such as Dalle or MidJourney, et cetera, but it's sort of like something much, much, much more sophisticated. I honestly haven't been spending too much time in my own sort of profession thinking about this. Of course, I ingest all of the noise, right? All of the confusion, just like all of us do as we read the news. And it's super disturbing. I think now on the creative side of things, I think is actually put quite well. Like there's a lot of precautions put into place in a lot of these more serious systems that can have really wide implications. A lot of thoughtfulness happening behind the scenes, even at a principal level that tends to guide all actual production. There's a lot of sort of gates and checks and balances that happen before something goes out into the world. And so I'm not concerned yet. I feel actually the future is quite bright, but it is dystopian as you take sort of like how fast things are growing on one end, and then how maybe dark other areas of society have been. I think if you put the two together, it can get a little dark quickly. But I'm looking at the glass half full right now.
Yeah, beautifully said from both of you guys. And I'll end on this, that there's going to be a heck of a lot of jobs out there for UX designers or the UX disciplines in the AI industry for now until a long time from now as this technology develops, because as you can see, AI itself is incredibly complex from a tooling standpoint to build tools for other things, right? And especially as you start to get into the conversation of fake news or ethics, there's so many things that you must think about. And even so much work has been done already to help combat it, this particular issue. I mean, if any of you have used any of these tooling, you'll undoubtedly come across a time where it tells you, you can't do that. You're violating either the terms of service or, you can't use certain words. And so I think there's a lot of promise there. And I think I'm proud of like the way it's been handled so far. And I do hope that we don't see worse things happen than, have already been happening. But I think like there's a lot of positivity going into this. And I really do believe that AI will be a useful tool for us as designers and help us grow and become more efficient and do our jobs better. I'm going to wrap things up. We're at time, but I just want to thank everybody on the in our audience for joining. Also, a moment to plug our two guests here. Nando, what is the best way, and also Ashley, the best way to get in touch with you guys if people are interested in talking more, or maybe just following you on a social platform? Please, if you wouldn't mind sharing with the audience or putting it into the chat, then that would be great.
I'll do that. I'll put my LinkedIn here. I will respond if you reach out. So yeah, please get in touch. And yeah, I was going to thank you. Thank Ashley and thank Adam and everybody for the invite. Yes, I love the conversation. Everybody also for joining. Sorry, Ashley, please go.
Well, thank you so much for this such a great time. I truly enjoyed the conversation. I could be reached through LinkedIn, so feel free to just ping me and I can answer any questions. We can also have a good conversations too.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. I'm really excited to follow both your journeys into this. I've learned a lot from both of you personally, and excited to see where this goes. And thank you again to Diego and also the DLF community. You guys are, as always, amazing, provided amazing questions and dialogue. And we're excited to keep this conversation going. We'll be following up with a post on LinkedIn, really continuing the discussion, but also including a recording, of today's session. And, we'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, dialogue. This is a evolving topic that literally is just going crazy every single day. So there'll be more things to discuss, and we're excited to hear your points of view as well. So thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Okay. Everybody, it was awesome.
Before everybody leaves, I want to make some announcements. If you want to leave the part 2 of this conversation, or if you want to discuss something about business thinking for designers, all of these leadership-related problems that you are facing, challenges, and how to work better with product, how to work better with sales, with marketing, please reach out to me. This is a community for design leaders, so I understand the challenges you are facing. I just need your help on what do you want to discuss, who are the people do you want to discuss with, the companies. And thank you so much, Adam, for leading this conversation. Nando, the Prince Nando, Ashley, thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. Everybody, thank you for being here. If you are not a DLF member, please apply at designleadership.com or reach out to me in LinkedIn as Diego Nunez. I am the director. So this is an open conversation to all, and we can have as many as we want. Next Monday, we will be speaking with Alex Schleifer, former design head of Airbnb, on how he scaled his team. Also, we have conversations on if you're a design leader, should you get an MBA? So that's a topic. How to hire, hiring, scaling, all the things that design leaders are facing. We have the content, we have the people. So please reach out to me and let's elevate your design career. So thank you so much. See you next week, and please reach out to Diego Nunez. Ashley, Adam, Nando.
Thank you, Diego. Talk soon.